Welcome back to the Weekly Sports Show. I'm your host Agastya Bajaj, and in this edition of the Weekly Sports Show, I'll be going over what has happened in sport in the past week. I'll be doing an in-depth preview on the NITO ATP Finals, which will start in just a couple of hours. I'll be giving you your sporting moment of the week, and as always, at the end of the show, I'll be bringing you the athlete of the week. So before I preview the NITO ATP Finals, let's take a look at what happened in both footballs in the past week. So ahead of the international break, which is happening right now, the Premier League season gets even more unpredictable, as Aston Villa travelled out to the Emirates and played Arteta's Arsenal out of the park, as they destroyed them 3-0 thanks to a brace from Ollie Watkins. This now means the Premier League table gets even more crazy, as only 3 of the top 6 traditional clubs are in the top 10, and the top 6 consists of Leicester, Tottenham, Southampton, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Aston Villa. And elsewhere in Spain, Real Madrid finally lost, as they lost to an average Valencia side 4-1 thanks to a hat-trick of penalties from Carlos Soler, which is kind of giving Real a taste of their own medicine considering how many penalties they've scored in their last 2 seasons. And there was more misery for Real Madrid, as Barcelona now closed the gap to them by only 2 points, as they beat Real Betis 5-2 on Sunday in a match which saw Lionel Messi come off the bench to score 2 goals and give 1 assist. And Atletico Madrid now go ahead of Real Madrid by 1 point and with a game in hand, courtesy of a João Felix masterclass in their 4-0 win against Cadiz. And Der Klassiker happened on Sunday, which is known as Bayern Munich versus Dortmund, as Bayern Munich continued to assert their dominance to the world of football as they defeated their rivals 4-2 and really showed us once again why they are clearly the best team in the world. And last week in the other football, which is known as the NFL, we saw last week's athlete of the week, Patrick Mahomes, continue his blistering form as he scored 4 touchdowns and ran 371 yards in the Chiefs' 33-31 win against the Panthers. And in Antonio Brown's debut for the Bucs, it ended in a complete nightmare as Tom Brady suffered his biggest loss ever as the Bucs lost 38-3 against the Saints in a game which saw veteran quarterback Drew Brees score 4 touchdowns. And the Bills and Seahawks contested quite a high-scoring game as the Bills beat the Seahawks 44-33. And the Steelers also continued their quest to match the Ravens' 16-0 record as they defeated the embarrassing Dallas Cowboys 24-19. And tonight in the NFL, we'll see the Steelers take on the Cincinnati Bengals as they hope to extend their unbeaten record to 9-0. And the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks will hope to bounce back from defeats as they take on each other. And Bill Belichick will be praying for a miracle to happen as he hopes that his team continues their form from last weekend as they take on the Baltimore Ravens. And this week's sporting moment of the week is probably one of the most ridiculous shots in history, as Spanish golfer Jon Rahm hit one of the most craziest hole-in-ones you'll ever see at the practice round for the Masters on Tuesday. Just take a look at this. And speaking of the Masters, tonight the Masters will come to an end, as Dustin Johnson will hope to win his 2nd major ever as he tries to defend his big lead and take the Masters crown off the man himself, Tiger Woods. So you should keep out an eye for that. So the end-of-year tennis championships will take place later today, as 8 of the best superstars this year will compete for the ATP Finals this week. This edition of the ATP Finals seems like it could be one of the most competitive ones ever, as almost every player has managed to beat each other at least once. To some, it does seem straightforward that either world number 1 Novak Djokovic, who hopes to tie Roger Federer's record of 6 ATP Finals wins, and Rafa Nadal, who hopes to win his first ever ATP Finals, are the favorites for the tournament. However, that's just not the case, as Rafa hasn't been that good in big ATP hardcourt tournaments for a long time, and as he's drawn in a group with new Grand Slam champion Dominic Thiem, the in-form Andrei Rublev, and reigning champion Stefanos Tsitsipas, I wouldn't be surprised if Rafa got eliminated in the group stage, as all three players have a really good chance of beating the Matador. Whereas for Novak, he's been drawn in a group with the rejuvenated Sasha Zverev, Daniil Medvedev, and the Kingslayer Diego Schwartzman. I think Novak should get out of the group, however he might struggle against Alexander Zverev, who has gotten the better of him recently. And Novak will have to be at his best if he is to win this tournament, as he is projected to be up against players who have either beaten him several times before or are in much better form than him in the latter stages of this tournament. Either way, this week in London should give us a massive indication on whether the guard of tennis is changing, and it has massive implications on the GOAT debate. So before I reveal who I think will win the tournament, I want all of you tennis fans to comment below on who you think will win it. So personally, I believe that if Dominic Thiem is fully fit, he will win the tournament. But if he's not fully fit, I think Sasha Zverev will stun the world and win the tournament, as he is a big game player and David Ferrer has really revived his career. So now it's time to announce the nominees for Athlete of the Week. First off to Daniil Medvedev, who went through a stellar group of players and only dropped one set on his way to winning the Paris Masters 1000 title last week. I'd also like to give a nomination to last week's Athlete of the Week, Patrick Mahomes, who put up ridiculous numbers as discussed in the NFL segment of the show. And I'd also like to give a nomination to Bruno Fernandes, who single-handedly won Manchester United the game against Everton as they defeated Everton 3-1, keeping manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the job for a bit longer. However, despite Daniil Medvedev's and Bruno Fernandes' impressive performances last week, it's not enough to win them the Athlete of the Week, as Patrick Mahomes goes back-to-back and wins the Athlete of the Week again. This now means that Mahomes has the most Athlete of the Weeks from the show, as he has 2 Athlete of the Weeks compared to Lewis Hamilton's 1. However, Lewis Hamilton can tie Patrick Mahomes next week if he produces a spectacle at the Turkish Grand Prix, as he finished 6th in qualifying yesterday. So that marks the end of the weekly sports show. I hope you enjoyed it and see you next week.